D equals RT. Solve for R. So we want to get R by itself and equaling whatever is left. So we have to get T over to this side. So what we can do is divide through by the whole thing. We can divide through the whole thing by T. 1 over T, let's call it that, multiply through. And we're going to get D over T equals R over T all over T. Now, T over T is 1. T over T equals 1. Any number, 6 over 6, or any number equals 1. So that cancels itself out. So finally, we're left with D over T equals R. Now here I flipped it backwards than usual, but you can just flip these things around as long as you don't change anything. R equals D over T. P equals 144P divided by Y solve for P. Well, let's get P all on one side. We can multiply completely by Y to get Y from the denominator into the numerator, and we end up with YP equals 144P. This is the long root here, and of course we multiply through, and we would multiply our Y to that side, and we'd have it over the Y. And then we can see here that Y over Y is 1. What are you talking about? 144P times Y, that's a Y, over Y, like that, is 1. So that cancels out, leaves us 144P equals YP. So we divide through by Y here, or we multiply by 1 over Y, whichever you want to say. So this is Y on this side and Y on this side. The Y over Y equals 1, so it cancels out, leaves us with P equals 144P over Y. Beautiful. R equals CS over D, and then solve for C. I like to put that up there so I remember what I'm trying to find. So you want to get C by itself. Well, let's go to the long step of multiplying through the whole equation by D. What we multiply through by one side, we do to the other side. So we're going to get dr equals CS over D times D, because we multiplied this side by D and this side by D. Now we can see that we have dr equals CS times D over D, which of course is 1, cancels out. dr equals CS, and we're looking for C. So you want to get C by itself, we'll divide through by S by both sides. So we're going to have dr over S equals, we're going to have dr over S equals CS over S. CS cancels out and leaves us with dr over S equals C, which we can flip around and say C equals dr over S. Of course, I changed that symbol here from, I changed this R from capital R to little r somewhere along in the line there. P equals A plus B plus C. And you want to solve for B. So we have to get everything on the right side or everything on the left side and just keep b completely isolated on one side. So I'm going to leave it right where it is. I'm not going to change the left and right. But we want to get rid of a. So how can we get rid of a? We want a to come over to that side. So we subtract a from this side, we subtract a from this side, and that ends up with p minus a, negative a, plus a positive a equals 0. So a is gone. So a is gone. Plus b plus c. Now we want to get, we're solving for b, so we want to get rid of c. So we want c to come over to this side. So when we cross this bridge, of an equal sign, we change the sign. So instead of being positive over here, it flips over to be negative. So we can say p minus a minus c equals b. Now when I say c crosses over that equal sign, the bridge, it changes the sign. Really what I'm saying is we are adding a negative c to this side and we're adding a negative c to this side. And that gives us the same results. So now this ends up with p minus a minus c equals b. We can flip that without changing any signs by just going by rewriting. b equals p minus a minus c. And I did not change any signs here. This is exactly what's here. But I can rearrange it if I wanted to. This is the same as b equals negative a plus p minus c, because p is, of course, a positive number. And it is also the same as b equals negative a minus c plus p. And this is just arranging. Now, depending on what you're using this for, you may want to rearrange this equation. In our situations, we don't have to rearrange it in any order, just as long as you come up with b equals one of those. T equals m minus n, and you want to solve for n. Well, that's pretty simple. We want to get n by itself. Now we will note on n, it's a negative n. We could rewrite this if we wanted to. T equals m plus negative n. And this is a great way to think about those things here. It's plus a negative number. Let's look at this one first. T, we're going to leave n where it is. We're going to get m to come over here. So we're going to add a negative m and add a negative m. T plus negative m equals negative m plus a positive m is 0. So we'll just leave that alone. T plus negative m equals negative n. We're solving for n. We are not solving for negative n, so we have to get rid of this negative sign. In order to get rid of the negative sign, we multiply the whole thing by negative 1. Remember, a negative times a negative equals a positive, and we want negative n to be a positive. So we multiply by a negative 1. The whole equation all the way. We're going to come up with negative t plus negative times a negative is a positive m equals negative 1 times a negative is a positive n. And that is done. It's pretty messy, but you can simply, you can simply change the notations. We don't have to keep this plus a positive m. We could just get rid of that now and say plus an m equals a positive n. We can get rid of that positive and we can just call it equals n. So here we have negative t plus m equals n. And we can flip it without changing any signs. N equals negative t plus M. You can't get much better than that. You could set it up alphabetically. N equals M minus T, which is a super nice thing. But we don't have to, in this case, that's what we're doing now. A plus B over 2 equals A. Solve for small b. Now in this case, I'm going to say that this is a capital A and this is a small case a, which symbolize something totally different. So they are not the same. It's the same as saying A and X plus B. They're not the same. So we're going to solve for B. The first thing I want to do is get everything out of the denominator. I'm going to do that by multiplying the whole equation by 2. That will cancel that out. Shorthand, 2a equals small a plus b. Now I'm solving for b, so I want to get a to the other side. So I'm going to add a negative a here. I'm going to add a negative little a here. I'm going to have 2 capital A minus small a equals b. And aside from cleaning that up, you're done. That works well. You can flip it around. B equals 2a minus little a. This is a good one. V LWH, and you want to solve for W. Now these have these symbols usually stand for special meanings. Like V, I think, stands for a vole, which is a small animal. A vole, it's kind of like a rat and digs around. And L must stand for Lima. And W must stand for water, and H must stand for helicopter. These are totally 4 different things that do not combine, so you have to solve for. That's a little joke there. This should be volume equals length times width times height. We don't worry about that right now. We're just solving for W. We do it exactly the same. Let's get W by itself. So we got to get L by itself. So we'll divide through the whole equation, left and right, by L. We divide through, which is the same as multiplying, as 1 over L. Let's look at this, 1 over L, multiply the whole equation, which is the same as dividing. Now, if we do this, do the whole equation, we don't change the balance. We don't change the meaning of the equation. And we come up with V over L equals LWH over L. And we get to cancel this out. L over L is 1. Any number over itself, any variable over itself is 1. So we're just going to, in shorthand, that's longhand right there. Shorthand, we're going to get rid of that completely as we do it. And we'll come up with V over L equals WH. We're solving for W, so we want to get rid of the H. We do exactly the same thing. We divide through both sides by H. Why do we divide through? Because WH is in the numerator, and in the denominator, there is really only a 1. This is, of course, the ghost one. Ghost 1, which is just about everywhere you don't see a 1, there's a ghost 1 there. And we can show that, but usually we don't. Okay, so, get rid of my ghost 1. I invented that term, ghost 1. We want to divide through by H. So we're going to multiply by 1 over H. That's dividing, but I like to say multiplying. V times L over H equals WH, this is longhand, over H. Now, as you see, H over H, put a little parentheses in there and you see it even more, is 1. So since it's 1, we can just simplify this And now we have W equals whatever it equals. We can flip it back around so that W, the variable we're trying to find, is on the left side. In the United States and many other countries, we read from left to right, like that. Some countries, like Japan, read in a different direction. I forgot. Do they go this way, this way? And some countries read up and down. I digress, and I will edit that out. So now we have W equals V over H and L, and that is the answer. There are several more for you to try, and on that worksheet, try those problems and check your answers. The ones you can't get, let me know, and I will work them in a video for you tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you, and stay tuned for many more of these wonderful videos in the world of mathematics.